This is going to be the next Kirkland Lake Gold. We're going to have multiple discoveries across this massive land package. On the Quebec side of the border, you have some of the richest mines in Canadian history. LaRonde, Horn Mine, VMS systems that are intrusion influenced. The benefits of me putting out visuals was that I had multiple geologists who had worked at Upper Beaver call and go, "You're on to something."
Hello and welcome back to The Next Big Rush. I have here somebody very, very special with me. This is a first timer, so do pay attention to this story. I have Stefan Sklepowicz of Kirkland Lake Discoveries, and we're all about talking about blue sky and talking about discovery, which if you remember my last video, I went a little bit haywire on what is going to happen next in the gold market. Not because I have a crystal ball, but because I kind of been through the cycle and I am drinking from fountains of knowledge of people that have come before us and have done this many, many times over. What's next is companies with houses in the ground and discovery plays. It's both. I don't know if they're going to happen at the same time, but the most important thing is that if you find something worthwhile and it's not even a great market, then guess what? The market is going to give you a lot of credit for it. But if you're doing it in a bull market, like what we have for gold right now, it is much, much sweeter. So Stefan, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. So straight up, I heard the name. I'm like immediately interested, but also have lots of questions. What's with the name Kirkland Lake Discoveries? I know Kirkland Lake was a massive, massive hit. I want to say about a decade ago, but I've been in this industry for so long, it's probably longer than that. And how is it related to what you guys are doing, or is it related?
Yeah, it is. So my chairman, Denis Laviolette, that's where he carved his teeth, was at Kirkland Lake Gold. And so when he came into the mix, he was part of Newfound Gold at the time, and so vended in a big piece of real estate, the Lucky Strike, and that's kind of what formulated our massive land package. But he had the idea of, this is going to be the next Kirkland Lake Gold. We obviously can't call ourselves Kirkland Lake Gold, but we're going to have multiple discoveries across this massive land package. So let's just hit the nail on the head and call it Kirkland Lake Discoveries. And so it's an ode to the past and a look to the future at the same time.
That's sweet. Okay, so when I am going through different companies' presentations, as I'm sure you do so yourself as an investor in this space, I am looking at different land packages and everything just seems so absurdly massive. And instantly I am pulled in two different directions. One is great. There is a lot of opportunity here, lots of upside because there's so many targets that you could potentially generate if you're on trend of something special, if the rocks look like the right rocks, right? And then the other side of me is thinking this is probably a liability because you're going to have to spend a lot of money to discover what the heck you have in the ground. And you need to have a really good technical team in order to figure out, where to drill in the first place. And whether you drill or not, you still have to maintain that land to a certain extent. So on your balance sheet, that's going to look like something that's not great until you make a discovery. How do you extract value? What is the plan here of extracting value from this and not just have a massive piece of land that, like some of the lifestyle juniors out there, it just sits there and doesn't really create value?
Those are perfect questions because that's the thing. And I'm me being a junior mining investor, it was the exact same where I would look at this district scale and go, okay, well, that's district scale levels of maintaining those claims. One of the benefits of Ontario claim management is that as long as they're contiguous claims, they all count. So if I do $1 of spend on the furthest west piece of my property, because every single one of our claims are contiguous, it can spread it across the entire position. We have about 7 years of credits kind of banked at this point in time. And so we have a really long runway with regards to keeping it in good standing. And so we're not concerned about that. You are right, though, in that exploring such a large land package can be very challenging because it's not just one trend. We have major regional structures. We have plutons that have come in. We have evidence of mineralization across the entire property. And so this is something that was one of the first things that I when I took over, I was like, we need to get this into bite-sized pieces. We need to get this more manageable. We have district scale geophysics, so across the entire thing. We have geophysics in an MPAS type of survey, so we have multiple iterations, magnetics, VLF, a couple other things, LiDAR. So that was piece one. Piece two was geochemistry, because geophysics is, as much as it can be positive, a lot of times there's red herrings, there's things that aren't there that should be there. And so what we did is focused on getting a broad B horizon soil sample done. So basically across the entire property or wherever it was appropriate to do so, because there are areas where there was till, and so that doesn't work for that style. But the west side of our property was really easy to cover in a nice big chunk, and that's what led us into this kind of phase that we're in currently, because we saw a bunch of clusters of anomalous mineralization that pointed us kind of in these directions. And when you get geophysics and geochemistry aligning, as well as a mineralization model that makes sense, that's where things get a lot more interesting. And that's kind of where we're sitting right now.
Okay. You said the magic words, mineralization model. What are you looking for? Are you looking for, intrusive related body? Is it a porphyry? Every time a junior says porphyry, I get kind of goosebumps because I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't know what you're getting into. I mean, you know what you're getting into, but also it's going to cost a lot of money, but also lots of upside. What is the setup here? Because like you said, it's a large land package, district scale. So there's probably many different models that you have to, put under a canopy. Have you decided on what your initial targets are going to be? Not regarding where exactly you're going to drill, but what is the illogical thesis behind what you're going after first?
So the whole reason we accumulated the land package that we did was because it's the Blake River group of rocks. Ontario has been overlooked for the longest time because there was cover. There was dogma in the camp that, there's nothing north of this line, so don't bother looking. And so it was minimal exploration and piecemeal. This is the first time that this land package has ever been assembled. It's the biggest in the camp. And the whole point of it was, on the Quebec side of the border, you have some of the richest mines in Canadian history. I think of La Ronde, which is a company maker for Agnico, Horn Mine. Those are both VMS systems that are intrusion influenced. And so the Blake River, for all the magical reasons that it is what it is, it has gold inputted into those VMS systems. And so it's uncommon that in a lot of areas when you're searching for VMS, you get, your lead, copper, zinc, silver, maybe if you're lucky, but then a lot of times you don't have that gold kicker. Whereas, the Horn Mine, and just as an example, it was close to 80 million tons at 6 grams per ton gold. And that was a VMS deposit.
That is a nice VMS deposit in my book.
Right. And that's the thing, is most people think of VMS being like, oh, it's just going to be this potty little, if you don't hit the lens, you're screwed. Yeah. Blake River just builds them a little bit different. And so we're still not 100% sure. And we also think that a lot of times those would have been classified differently in the past. If you think back 90, 100 years ago when they were first mining this, they're like, yeah, it's massive sulfide, so we'll just call it a VMS. Not really looking at it necessarily as like, did this intrusion remobilize this? Did this intrusion influence this mineralization? And so there's kind of two models that we're looking at. The other one, so the first one obviously being that VMS intrusion related or intrusion influenced, depending how you look at it. And then the other one is an intrusion related type of copper, gold, zinc in our circumstance, because we see a lot of sphalerite in our core. And so we think it might be more towards that. And just down the road from us, Upper Beaver, which is one of Agnico's newest mines they're moving into production, it's an intrusion influenced or intrusion related copper gold system. And so because Kirkland Lake is as tight as it is, every geologist knows every geologist, and every company works closely with everybody around us. the benefits of me putting out visuals was that I had multiple geologists who had worked at Upper Beaver call and go, "You're onto something. You have very similar rocks to what we saw at Upper Beaver. The mineralization looks very similar. I don't know if it's the same thing, but this is exciting." So that's kind of the two things that we're looking at, because the lenses that we are hitting are, they're pure sulfides. We're getting massive sulfides, chalcopyrite, pyrite. And so that leads you down towards that VMS type of, story. But then there's a lot of fluids, there's a lot of alteration. There's clearly a heat source, and there's been multiple phases of mineralization. And that's one of the telltales at Upper Beaver, that it's this, scarnoid first and then intrusion related afterwards. And so it's still early stages for us, but those are kind of the two things that we're looking at.
That sounds really exciting. Okay, so let's talk about timeline. What are you guys doing right now, and what can investors expect going forward 3, 6, and 9 months, etc.?
So right now, we just finished up our 1,700 meter drill program. Because we did our soil sampling last year, it led us to this pathway, and then this was now the first test of this thesis. And so the rocks coming back the way that they did, we were like, yep, confirmed. This is exciting. Now it's a matter of getting the geochemistry back and formulating the refined hypothesis from this. And so it's going to tell us, exactly what we're working with. What does that alteration look like from a geochemistry standpoint? How can we use this to vector in on what we're hoping is going to be, that main trunk of the tree, so to say. So what we think that we've hit right now is kind of like one of those branches coming off of the tree. So with intrusion related, a lot of times they're really deep systems that kind of come up, and they can branch off from that main feeder zone. And so we don't think we hit the main feeder, but we think we hit a branch of it. And so the idea is that from the geochemistry, we should be able to vector in towards, where the hot core is and go towards that. So we have about 1,000 samples that are coming back over the next couple of weeks. And so that's going to be a huge news release when that comes. From the visuals, we know that there's going to be copper, zinc for sure. The things you can't see, is the gold, silver, but in the past and from grab samples, they have been in the system. And so it's just a matter if the mining gods are going to be smiling on us with some good intercepts from that regard. The other thing that we have going on is we're doing an MT survey. So a helicopter MT, which gives us the flexibility of covering a much larger area, because it's not just the one area we're looking at. This Pluton has a border that's 17 kilometers long, which again, as you said, is great, but it's hard you can't just do offensive drill holes around the whole thing to try to find it. And so the MT survey.
But if you have blank check and, infinite good season, good weather.
Yes. We're lucky we can drill year round. So that's cool, but I don't have that blank check yet. So maybe, I don't know, maybe after these assays, I'm not sure. However, as a shareholder, I'm probably going to look for a little more efficiency in our program. And so that MT survey is going to help to highlight to about 1 kilometer depth, which will really show us, where those contacts are, because that's what matters. It's the intrusion coming in, and then the country rock, the mafic volcanics that are already there. It's that contact and that heat and those fluids that seem to be making a big difference. And so the MT survey should really highlight that. And then we combine that with our magnetics. And the reason why magnetics is important is that in this system, there's magnetite and magnetite alteration. And the magnetite is tightly associated with our massive sulfides. And so that magnetic survey basically highlights where that high is. And we know that on that border is where we should be looking, because the sulfides and massive sulfides don't have that magnetism to them. And so it basically showcases this is where you should be drilling. So we already have our magnetics laid out. We have our geochemistry. The MT is going to give us an underground look that's going to open up a little bit more. And so we're in the process of having that survey done. So that'll be over the next few weeks. And then as the geochemistry comes in, as that MT survey comes in, we're back drilling. And so, like I said, we can drill year round. Some of these areas are actually better in the wintertime because the ground freezes. And that's as early as, early November in Kirkland Lake. We're pretty far north there. And so basically, as soon as the ground is frozen, we're going to get into some trickier to reach areas that we're already permitted for and ready to go and have the capital to be able to pull the trigger on.
You just talked about capital. How much is in the bank right now, and how much you think this whole thing that you just said is going to cost?
So we have $1 million in the bank right now. The intention is that we're going to have some great results, I'm assuming. And with that, we'll be able to have another raise. We already have some big names attached to our story. They've already expressed interest in coming back in.
We love name dropping in this channel, by the way. Who are the big names? Are you able to talk about it?
Our two big boys that came in on it was Eric Sprott and Rob McEwen in our last raise. Sean Rusin was also part of that, not necessarily as big of a investment as those guys, but they're holding 5 and almost 10%. Eric's filed as an insider because with his warrants it puts him over. And so he's already expressed, immense joy at what we've already, showcased through the visuals. He was buying on the open market at 17, 18 cents. And so we know we have his support. And so what that allows us to do is to have an open-ended drilling program going forward. So, the initial cost will definitely cover our MT survey and allow us to start drilling. But we have regional targets around this intrusion, as well as more specific targets where we're drilling right now. And so it's hard for me to answer. And people have been asking us, and it's a very valid question, but it's open right now. Because my goal is to be aggressively drilling this out and finding exactly what we're working with as soon as humanly possible. I'm not a sit back and watch kind of guy. This isn't a lifestyle company. And when you have a land package this big, the best thing you can do is work it. And so with that, there's going to be kind of ongoing results trickling in, for the next 9-12 months as we work through this thing. And so the cost of drilling in Kirkland Lake, because it's a brownfields camp, has been part of the Abitibi, one of the founding members type of thing. It's cheap. So our all-in cost for the drill program we just completed, and this is including assays and geologist costs, room and board, everything, was $225 per meter. So we can get a lot of bang for our buck, which means
that's cheaper than Nevada.
It is. We can pull from, all the way to Val-d'Or for our miners. The last ones we had were from Chibougamau, and they were brilliant. They were efficient. They were quick. They were I had no issues with our drill program. And that's the thing, is you're bringing in pros, and the Abitibi, has been around forever. 300 million ounces have been found of gold. And so you have all of these other trades, at your fingertips. So we can do a lot of damage with a small amount of money, which is the exciting part.
That is exciting. Okay. Last question, which should have been technically the first question. To me, it all comes down to team. Who are the key people in your company right now that you believe are the right people in the right seats to push the company forward to the next stage that you guys are entering right now?
So I'll start with my technical team on the ground. I have 2 senior geologists. One is Mike Kilbourne. Mike has been part of Abitibi exploration for the last almost 50 years, has logged thousands and thousands and thousands of meters of core. And so he has this knack where he can look at something and be like, oh, I saw this at this mine, and this looks like this. And, this is really interesting. And so just as a side story, we're collaring in massive sulfides, basically, or semi-massive sulfides. So right from surface. And, with all the drill holes in the past, I kind of been going the same way. And he was like, we're going to flip this thing around, and we're going to go at a steeper angle, because I think this is where it's coming from. And so the last hole that we did, sure enough, 97 meters down, we see continued mineralization, chalcopyrite, pyrite. The hole got called earlier than we wanted, just from lots of random reasons, but the kind of the last four holes were set up that they were going to be 100 meters each, and so sure enough, that one ended. It looked like mud on the core, didn't look like mineralization until we got it back, washed it, and sure enough, it ended in mineralization. And so he just kind of made that right call of, this is where I think it's coming from, and that comes from that experience. Somebody being able to be like, yeah, no, this is what this looked like. The problem with Mike is that he is been a geologist for 50 years. If I ask him to give me a map, it is literally drawn with pencil crayons and rulers, and it's amazing, but it's really hard to communicate that to anybody else digitally. And so that's where I have Drake Hyden. He's kind of my young gun. He's worked a lot in the Abitibi as well, but has that digital experience where he can do GIS, he can do Leapfrog, and kind of the two of them together make this like superhuman work team. And so those are my technical guys. They do an incredible job. And then our board is composed entirely of geologists, and there's a reason that it was made that way. It's because we're an exploration company. They have different strengths. One's specific, in AI and machine learning. Denis, our he's an explorationist to the heart. And so he sees things differently and looks at big picture and how those things kind of fit together. Christina and Gary both have success, building companies up and selling them off. And so, again, really good key pieces from our board as well.
Very, very cool. Is there any sort of last words that you want to leave our, investors and potential investors now looking into your company and thinking, I'm going to add this to my watch list? What are some key things that they should know that maybe we haven't really gone into?
The one thing that I always like talking about with our company, and this comes from my experience as I have 25 years as a junior mining investor. And one of the things I always hated was the lack of transparency. A lot of times when it comes to these junior shitcos, they sometimes will go, hey, look, we got this amazing thing. And then it's like, whoop, 6 months later, you get some news and you're like, oh, wow, that wasn't at all what you guys were just talking about. What happened there? Mm-hmm. And so for me, transparency is paramount. And so one of the things that we've done is we've put together a video series where I strap GoPros to Mike and Drake, send them out in the bush, get them to share all their stories, show people exactly what we're doing. As we're peeling back moss, you can see that happen. And so we have the KLDC Treasure Hunters video series on YouTube. And the whole point is to keep any investors, interested in what we're doing. So you can see the core that came out of the last drill holes. You can see whenever, I'm at a conference talking to people, selling the story, getting more investors interested in it. And you can see the guys doing their thing. And so, every single dollar that's being spent, you're aware of, you see it happening. And so for me, it's a huge benefit because the majority of the conversations that I have with investors are just clarification questions, not what the hell are you up to? And where's my, my payback of my investment? And so it's a lot more fun from my regard. It helps with First Nation meetings, one of the last ones I went to, the guy was like, yeah, no, I know exactly what's going on. It's, we don't have to talk about any of that. Like, how are you? How are the kids? What's going on? And so it's interesting, but for me, it's paramount. I think it's going to be a thing of the future for these junior co's, because it's to get the average person to understand what we're doing is hard enough as it is. And if you're deceptive about it, it's even worse. And so for anybody who's interested in learning more about the story, the best part is that you have the last 9 months cataloged for you piece by piece. You can watch it from the beginning all the way through to here and see, the transition of that journey.
That is so refreshing. You have no idea. I'm screaming yes, this is the way internally here. Stefan, thank you so much for coming onto the show, for talking about your company, giving us, a good overview of why people should take notice of what you guys are doing and what you guys will be doing for the next several months. But most importantly, thank you for taking this stance. I'm all about transparency. And, we invest in this industry, and you and I have seen all sorts of things that we don't need any longer if we want to bring new people in, young people in, things need to change. And I'm happy to see that you guys are taking a completely different approach to this. So thank you so much. And
Appreciate it.
where can people find out more except for YouTube? They're going to go into YouTube anyway. Well, what's the website?
So KirklandLakeDiscoveries.com. Check it out. We're on all socials as well. So wherever you get your information, but yeah, the main is KirklandLakeDiscoveries.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I hope to be chatting to you soon because I think you guys are onto something here. And I am sure there'll be lots and lots of news to catch up on.
For sure. There will be.